the Magic trade for Desmond Bane. The Grizzlies get a little worse now, but will they get better long term? We'll talk about the KCP decision by Denver relitigated. Plus, how does this trade affect the Nuggets? And where's the Nuggets news at? All this and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode where we are going live every day, all through the offseason, trying to do our best to cover this team as best as we can. My name is Ryan Blackburn, host of the Locked On Nuggets podcast here, also Pickaxe and Roll over with Mile High Sports. He is Matt Moore, who does the Denver Dig Substack at the Action Network and just a whole litany of other things, as well as the HP Basketball Substack, which is covering the league at large. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Matt, when you heard the news today about Desmond Bane getting traded, what was your first reaction?
That's what it was. If you go to youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets, you'll know what that was. That was my first reaction.
Yeah.
Because Dez is like my guy. Dez is like my favorite Grizzly. He's like there's so many reasons, like the way that he came in as a shooter. He was a knockdown shooter. He's a good defender. He works on his handle in the offseason. They go into summer league and they're like, hey, we want you to learn how to play with the ball in your hands. And that's all he does for 3 games. And he's great. And he works on it. He works on it all summer. And he comes in, he like becomes a secondary playmaker. And then like they have the 2023 run. And then at the end of it, after all of Ja's nonsense, like Ja and Dylan are talking trash constantly to the Lakers. And then they get absolutely served. And in doing so, like Dylan and Ja skip media, and Jaren and Desmond get up there and they're like, yeah, it was disappointing. Yeah, we got to play back. Like, did the responsible thing. Desmond Bane is my guy. I want great things for him. This is a perfect fit for him. It is awesome. I was like, oh, okay. So they put more pure shooters around Zach Edey. That's what they did here. So they can emphasize Zach Edey more. Zach Edey's metrics are all very positive. It's one of those, I don't dislike the move in terms of this makes the Grizzlies better or worse. I dislike this move because I like Desmond Bane and I did not want him traded. And so it's a bummer that happened, but this is a much better spot for him. For Memphis, there's like 3 lines of thought right now across both the league and online media. One is this signals a blow up. It's not true. They're not, I don't think they're, unless Ja Morant comes to them and is like, I'm not signing any extension. I'm not signing a long term. I want out. Unless that happens, they're keeping Ja. They're going to use the picks that they acquired to clear more space so they can sign Jaren to the extension that he has due this summer. And they're going to build up around Ja and Jaren and Zach Edey and Jalen Wells. And then they're going to go forward with that. There is a thought that this could lead to another big move, but my question would be like, I don't know what, like, you can add a 3rd star, but not for very long with the repeat. Like, you can't pay that luxury tax in Memphis. Like, Memphis is one of the few franchises I will tell you just like, yeah, Rob Pereira could pay it, but it would significantly eat into it. Like, they do not generate revenue. Like, it's rough in Memphis, and it's Memphis and New Orleans are the 2 that I think it's roughest for. And sure. So like they, regardless of whether they can or should, because like I always think owners should pay. Like, these should be like fun luxury items. Regardless of that, like that's not going to happen at all. So with that said, like, I don't think that there's a big 3rd star coming. I think this is just, they're going to move more pieces. They'll add like 1 or 2 components. Luke Kennard's going to be gone. Santi Aldama will be gone in free agency. They'll reshuffle a couple of pieces and that's it.
Man, Santi Aldama. That's a good, interesting name. Also, Brandon Clark, potentially a name that you would want to poach if they wanted to keep Santi Aldama. There's plenty of names, I think, over there of good, talented players that if they did decide to go the rebuild route, or at least the retool route, there are, I think, guys that could be helpful in a Nuggets rotation. But from the Orlando side, like, You said you're unhappy for Desmond Bane. I think this is going to be great for him. I think this is.
No,
one
I
of
said I
those
was happy for him. This is a great
Yeah.
spot. We're in alignment there. Go ahead.
He is going to be incredible next to Paolo and Franz. I think he has the perfect player in Jalen Suggs right now next to him to kind of take off most of that defensive pressure at the point of attack. They've got big wings. They've got good defense. That he can be the versatile piece that he was. Like I look at Orlando and I think they've got 3 guys that I can consider. You could see each of them averaging 25-5 in this next season. And to me, having versatility, having multiple options, multiple answers, I think that really makes sense. And so in a year where Boston's going to probably be out of it, you never know what's going to happen in the rest of the Eastern Conference. Why not go for it, especially with a guy that is within your ballpark? Like this isn't Kevin Durant. This isn't Damian Lillard, other names that have been talked about as veterans that are on the move. Desmond Bane is a great young player who may not be an all-star, but could be an all-star in Orlando. I think that there's no question that he could. And he's a guy that I think Nuggets fans have long envied because he was a player that they could have drafted twice in 2020. And I wonder what that world looks like if they end up getting Desmond Bane in a Nuggets uniform.
Yeah, I don't. Do you think there's any value in doing that?
No. It's just me being miserable.
Okay. Yeah, I just look. You could have picked Bane, and he comes into practice and has a bad practice, and then Malone always doesn't play him, or he doesn't get along with one of the key guys, or the agent has like there's just like these things are always so complicated, right? It's about opportunity and situation, and he was put in the right situation, opportunity in Memphis to become the player that he was capable of becoming. And maybe if Zeke Naji got traded somewhere else, he'd be in a better spot. And I've made this point, and I do think I do believe this. I don't think Nikola Jokic becomes Nikola Jokic everywhere in the NBA. I think Nikola Jokic becomes Nikola Jokic most places in the NBA. But there are a couple of like teams and coaches I would not have trusted like his development with. The Nuggets were in the right position to give him the opportunity that they did. And so, I get it. It's always like, man, we could have had Desmond Bane. I get it. But to be fair, every single team in the league is like that. Like Mavericks fans are another one that's always like, we could have had Desmond Bane. I think it's a perfect fit for Orlando. It was great because I wrote about this, that they needed somebody who is, the usage thing is so important. It's like you needed a guy who was going to make you better and you could put the ball in his hands, but you didn't have to. Like the list of guys who can score that don't need the ball is low.
Yeah.
Low. Not shoot. There's a lot of guys that can shoot that don't need the ball, but a lot of guys that can score who don't need the ball. And that's one I think that you have to kind of go with. Ken Goldman says TC messed it up not drafting Bane. Yes, but he kind of did well drafting Nikola Jokic. So there's that.
Also flipped RJ Hampton into the pick that got them Aaron Gordon. So
yeah. So somebody kind of commented, this makes me really, Big Honey was talking about how like, oh, we can't get anything because it's taken multiple picks to get something. I get it, but it's like, look, all you need one team to talk themselves into Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray. That's it. And then you'll be able to get like a lot of assets for a big upgrade. And if you're like, well, I don't want to break up the core. Okay. Well, then that's different, right? You need one team to be like, yeah, we really believe in Peyton Watson. I try to make this point on Twitter that just like we do this thing where it's like we expect there to be a market where it's like, oh, X level player is worth Y level of picks. And it's just like not how it works. It's all individual transactions between two teams based off of what both teams have available and are willing to give up. Like the Magic gave up a bunch of picks that are not going to be in the lottery that they can afford to, because those picks were just going to turn. And this was a big point by me years ago that I wish, I will say like this is where the two timelines thing goes sideways. Eventually just having picks turns into roster spots you can't use. That's it. Like that's all these guys were going to be for Orlando, was guys that they don't have room in the rotation for. And that's not helpful. I want to ask you about that though, as like more somebody who's a little bit more amenable to the young guys thing.
I think that it's a good point because I think Orlando is already very close. This is like a finishing move for your core. This is the Aaron Gordon move. You made that point in our chat earlier today, and I think it was a salient one that they were in a unique position to do that because they had already established who their core was going to be, and they needed this other piece in order to complete it. Now, they may not be done. There are some things, like there's a lot of people concerned about Jalen Suggs being the point guard or not being the point guard that they need. They could probably use an upgraded center at some point, despite the fact that Wendell Carter Jr., Goga Batadze, and a healthy Mo Wagner is a really good center rotation. There's some other things that Orlando could probably do, but they have the flexibility to make those finishing moves when the time comes. But you need to make this move in order to be in position to make those other things. So I'm with you that giving up on draft capital is fine, and it could be good in some circumstances if you are just like what Denver should have done in retrospect, rather than turning the 2029 first round pick into and a second round pick into 3 young guys. They should have condensed that into one quality rotation player that they could trust night in and night out. And that was, I think, the calculus error for a team that's in a finishing scenario versus a team that's developing, or a team like Orlando that's trying to make moves into that spot. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to chat about how this trade affects the Nuggets and kind of rehash the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope decision, because he just wrapped up and is now a Memphis Grizzly. We'll be right back here on Locked On Nuggets.
You ever check into your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. When you start using Monarch, you're going to realize how much you're spending on stuff like food delivery. That's a big one for us in my household. And when I'm able to look at that, I was able to be a good example of this. Monarch Money showed me how much I was spending on food delivery. So I went and I transferred instead of just like cutting that out, I transferred my credit card points into digital gift cards, and we made that a net neutral proposition for us to be able to order out. So now I still get to order out, but that let me know how I need to manage my money differently using Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets.
All right, we are back. Locked On Nuggets. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Thanks for making Locked On your first listen. Make your second listen the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft, a 5-episode series with the most comprehensive NBA draft analysis from NBA experts to college experts and NBA draft experts. Find the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft on NBA Big Board and Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're back here. Thanks for tuning into the show. So this trade, it's not too dissimilar from the Mikal Bridges trade last year for me in terms of, hey, a team finds an opportunity. They see themselves as very close. Throw the picks. Don't break up your core. Just try to add to it and make the best that you can and try to capitalize on what's a wide open Eastern Conference. The West doesn't really feel that wide open right now, Matt. It feels like OKC has pretty much a stranglehold on this thing. You've made the argument that that's not necessarily the case going forward, and they're going to have to make some decisions that might make them worse going forward at various points. But I just wonder how this trade affects the Nuggets, how this trade kind of affects the trade landscape around the NBA. Could we see more player movements, a massive amount of player movement like is advertised?
I mean, first off, Ryan, I get it, buddy. Because you got like a fatalism streak because OKC is in the division and they're like the team that I feel like most NBA Twitter heads want their team to be. Like, draft super young and be hyper athletic and all young guys all the time. And like, they're like that. And they're all dogs. But like, come on, man. Like, they're in a 2-2 series. Like they may not even win the finals. I think they will. But like, we can back off of the most dominant talk. Like, they're not going to This team's beatable.
I just disagree. I flat out disagree, and that's fine.
Dude,
but
they
like,
went 7 with this crappy Denver team, and then are going to a game 6 at least with Indy. Man, they're
I think
beatable.
again, it's a youth. You hate the youths. You understand that the youths are pretty weak overall in terms of being in these situations before, not knowing, but they're going to get better. They're going to get more veteran. They have this experience, and it's going to make them a stronger team going forward. At least that's my perspective. So I think they're learning a lot about themselves, and they are going to keep adding to that group. I think the argument that I heard from somebody was that they are the most well-positioned team in professional sports right now, which like that's a statement, but I don't think it's that crazy. And I think you're zagging on this when there's a lot of people that think that they are just in a really great spot.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that think that are very, just like there's a lot of people that thought the Celtics were, there's a lot of people that thought the Nuggets were. We'll see.
I didn't think
I think that one of the things that's weird about this is I do think Memphis kind of downgrades now. Like Memphis is further from contention, so they're not like a force in the West. We'll see what Minnesota does, but they're gonna probably lose Naz Reid. Could they get better? It's gonna be tough. So if Minnesota doesn't get better, and Memphis has gotten worse for right now, okay, OKC, sure. Who else? Like,
I think San Antonio is the team that you're going to have to start talking about. I think Houston will be a team that gets genuinely better next year.
But I mean, it depends. If they don't get if they don't get a legit offensive number one, they're not going to get any better on offense. You know,
you don't think their young guys will be able to step up and handle that?
I think Amen is 2 years from being that guy. I think Amen is 2 years from it.
Okay.
Getting Steven Adams back on the deal was a very good discount.
Crazy deal, but also fantastic for them.
But look, KCP is still a good player. I am willing to throw out the season for KCP. No player had a good season offensively for Orlando. There's a lot of criticisms about the offense that's coming both internally and externally about how it was structured and how it was built. They had injuries. So, like, I don't think KCP's washed. I just think he had a bad season. I think he can have a bounce back year. I do want to ask you, though, given that he was part of a trade that wound up landing Desmond Bane, I mean, I feel like we've covered this pretty well, but what's your feeling on the KCP decision a year later?
So one of the arguments for not keeping him was that the second apron was going to be so taxing. It was going to be so difficult. It was going to be so prohibitive that they weren't going to be able to do anything. And it was going to be a problem. And then they didn't have any flexibility, yada, yada, yada. They didn't make any moves during the season anyway, man. Like, they didn't have any flexibility anyway. So why didn't you bite the bullet? Why didn't you just sign him? Why didn't you just retain the asset with the hope that, like, he has a better season in Denver, like, continues to have that chemistry with the Nuggets, and you don't lose a major piece that clearly it would have been nice to have another 3-and-D wing to go into the OKC series with, like you talked about. Maybe OKC isn't the juggernaut if they're having KCP guard them. So I don't know. It's something that has been clanking around to the head a little bit since last week. And now this kind of hits home. Denver doesn't have any tradable salary because they're unwilling or unable to trade Michael Porter and Jamal Murray. They're not going to trade Aaron Gordon. They won't trade Nikola Jokic. So trading KCP would have been a good call for Denver this offseason, but they don't have that opportunity because they didn't do it.
Grace says, I'd rather have to find a KCP salary dump than a Zeke one. I think that's a pretty fair point.
Yeah.
Because I do think Memphis values KCP. Like Memphis got 2 rotation guys. They got a 2 guard who can play on the wing with Jalen Wells and is going to help make him better, and a backup point guard. Like they got guys that will play for them.
What's Scottie Pippen going to be doing?
Probably playing in combo sets with Cole. Feeding the ball to Zach Edey in the post. That's what he'll be doing.
Man, that's quite a gig he's got.
Yeah. At the time, I'll say this. I want to cop to something. I underreported on the MPJ stuff or the KCP stuff at the time. because for me, a lot of it was understanding the impact that the CBA was having on all teams, and what I was hearing from a lot of different people in personnel groups across the league at that time, which is like the flexibility and like you got to keep this open and like really look at what we can't do. Like we can't, we won't be able to do this and we won't be able to do this. And they didn't wind up using that flexibility anyway. And you don't gain flexibility to automatically use it. I think that's a fair pushback, is like you want the option. That doesn't mean like you're committed to doing it. I don't think you always have to be getting better at the deadline. Like people made this argument when the Thunder were down 10 in game 4 and I was losing my mind, where I was like, they won 68 games. They have the best point differential in NBA history. It's fine. Like at some point your team has to be good enough. Like there's got to be a level that you're like, this is good enough. I don't think Denver was at that. Right. And they should have tried, but they couldn't because they thought their assets were going to be better than they were. But the bigger thing, though, is that if we look at minute allotment, I think their idea was Christian Braun can take this minute allotment from KCP and the subsequent minutes can't matter that much. Like we save the money on KCP. We get Christian a bigger opportunity. And what would have been if you'd flipped them, the KCP minutes without Christian or KCP minutes with Christian aren't valuable enough to justify the expenditure and loss of flexibility. I think that was the real thing from the team and the ownership group. Now,
I know it's an ownership thing, by the way, because that's the exact way they run the head coaching and front office.
Now, I think you can look at this year's data and probably go back and say, there's a reason why your stagger units went from being elite to negative. There's a reason why your defense went from being pretty good to dog poo in a very small can. Like, there's all these reasons why but that to me was the proposition of, can Christian Braun replace KCP? And these other minutes we can find with either development or whatever, but they can't be that important. And that was, I think, the miscalculation. Was the combo minutes of KCP and Christian, or the minutes without Christian with KCP that they would have had?
Yeah, it's not surprising, especially if they were trying to recreate 2023 in a lot of ways. Like they had an 8-man playoff rotation in 2023. They didn't need that much from those guys. They just needed the top 8 to be as good as they could. So it doesn't surprise me that they went that route and that's kind of the way that they envisioned it. But as we've seen in this modern NBA with Indiana and OKC, having 9, 10, 11, 12 guys does really matter.
Hurricane does make this point. Save the money on KCP only costs us $10 million more on the CB contract. It's probably right. Like you're going to pay that forward to somehow.
Sick. All right, let's take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about, hey, Russell Westbrook opted out. That's interesting news, but there's not been a lot of other Nuggets news out there. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Nuggets.
The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or breakout player. How about Obi Toppin? There's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With live player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Tyrese Halliburton under 8.5 assists, game 5. They're switching everything. Play his points and assists under as well. They're switching everything with Chet Holmgren now, and that's going to I love Tyrese. He is not great attacking switches. Siakam, probably going to run a lot of ghost screens, and he's going to get the ball on the slip and be able to have a scoring opportunity, so his points and rebounds over. I think the Thunder win, but I do like the Pacers plus 9.5 in game 5. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets.
All right, back at it, Locked On Nuggets. Thank you for tuning into the show on this Sunday night if you're listening on YouTube, Monday morning if you're listening on the audio side. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. and a 5-star review on the audio side. Would really appreciate that, folks. Matt, what was the most important thing from this past week? Was it the Ilitch's deal that was signed by the Cronkies, or was it Russell Westbrook opting out?
I think Russ opting out. CT wants us to talk about the draft. I will not talk about the draft workout, sir. I will not engage in this nonsense. I think it was the Russ opting out. So Stein has effectively said that Russ's Instagram report, like comments about year 18 loading, whatever, suggest that he's not going overseas. Like, I'll just say he hasn't gotten one offer to go overseas. He's gotten multiple offers. Not offers. Let me walk that back. He's gotten multiple points of interest, not formal contract offers, to go overseas. The Nuggets were not surprised that he opted out. They were expecting him to opt out. It doesn't close the door to him returning. It doesn't mean that he's automatically back. This is not one of those, he's going to opt out because it's smarter for him and he'll just make more money and blah, blah, blah. If they have to pay him the taxpayer mid-level exception because they haven't found anybody else, that's where this becomes a disaster. Like, that's really like what this gets into is like, I will skip the show and just let Ryan cry on air if he signs for the taxpayer mid-level exception. Ryan, I will not be on that show with you.
Yeah, I might skip the show too, frankly. At this point, that's we'll just have welcome to Locked On Nuggets, and it's a blank microphone. So we'll see what happens there, but I do think, like, look, this is about maximization of limited resources, and that would just be another way that Denver has fumbled the bag. I think they have, like, that's they got very lucky that Bruce Brown was the first taxpayer mid-level guy that they had to sign. I think that, like, look, a lot of this is kind of like secondary in part due to the fact that we still don't know about the general manager stuff. There's at least a non-zero chance that we're getting like a 9 a.m. announcement tomorrow morning. That just wouldn't surprise me at all. That it's.
I thought we were getting it on Friday. I thought they were going to news dump it.
Yeah. I think that they are very familiar with the concept of a Friday afternoon news dump and would like to probably put that out on Monday morning instead. But we'll see what ultimately comes from that, because, like, starting tomorrow, it'll be 9 days away from the NBA draft. And we did the show last week about, hey, time to let's kick it into gear. Let's go. And still nothing has come out. Is all of this on hold from Denver because they just, like, don't have a GM yet?
This stuff being what?
Usually you hear news, rumors, free agency stuff, things leaking from folks. I don't, like, we haven't heard anything about Denver trying to sign free agents.
Yeah. So that's because Denver's at the bottom of the list. So my understanding is that there will probably be additions that are going to be veteran free agent signings. Think Justin Holiday, not that specific name, but like that level of player and name is what Denver is going to be looking to add. And they might get some guys that you're like, hey, he's good. And they might get some guys you're like, really? So, I would keep your expectations low. I think that they'll try and get a few of those guys. I think obviously if Russ comes back, like that, the money is just it's just gonna be difficult, right? Like this is the whole thing is if you let KCP walk to stay out of the second apron, and you basically have to go into the second apron to get 2 minimum guys and re-sign Russ, it's a quantifiable disaster with no, like, way out.
I don't think that they're going to have to go into the second apron. First of all, they can't sign the taxpayer mid-level and, like, go into the second apron. Those things are mutually exclusive. Okay. So they would have to stay under if they were to use that thing. But, like, that would probably involve finding another situation for Dario Saric. That would probably involve finally finding a taker for Zeke Naji. There's some things on the fringe that they're going to have to do. Maybe it's getting Hunter Tyson to, like, be folded into a deal so they could just sign a minimum contract in his place, things like that. But there are things that they can do on the margins. But like you said, bottom of the barrel, bottom of the list. This is where Denver currently resides because they believe that they are good enough and are unwilling to really change.
I thought you were in a better place. You sound very frustrated tonight.
It is this Desmond Bane trade. Like, it's just nice to be able to talk about something interesting, and other teams that are willing and able to go for it. Denver's just not able to go for it again. Like they are. I don't think that they have a lot of upward mobility to like really get that piece that's going to jumpstart them again against a lot of these other teams in the NBA. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the signs were there in that Thunder series, and they're just going to be good enough, and they can find that rhythm again. They can find that gear again.
I do think you got to. I do think that all Nuggets, any Nuggets fan that's aligned with Ryan, I would say you probably got to recalibrate in terms of like, look, you won 50 games, you took the 1 seed to 7, you showed a gear higher. That Clipper series was really impressive. Like, they are not just like a squad, like they're in the mix. I think, and you and I kind of talked about this, and we'll get into this I think a little bit more this week of exactly how much the Nuggets need to improve by. Ryan and I both kind of agreed after looking at some math, they need to get to 54 wins. That's the gap. They're at 50. They need to win 54 games. Like, if they get to 54 games and they feel more like a contender, you'll feel better. Yes.
Probably so. But again, if we're talking,
is there any scenario in which they keep the current roster and the current roster just plays better? Young guys develop, the veteran guys play better, and you just feel better about it? Or is it got to be changed?
I don't think they have the right mix right now. So I don't think that that's going to, like, unless Peyton Watson really makes a jump, unless Julian Strawther makes a real jump, unless, hey, Christian Brown's now like doing stuff off the dribble or things like that. Maybe Jamal Murray finally plays like an all-star in the regular season. Then like maybe there's layers to this that could kind of change my perspective. I just don't really expect that to happen. And it makes it sound like I'm beating a dead horse over and over and over again. And I hate that because I don't want to do that. But I keep coming back to this unfortunate reality that Denver's just stuck. Like there's not a lot that they can do to shift if they want to.
How much, is it correct to say that most of this is rooted in your frustration with their refusal to entertain breaking up the core?
Yeah. Because if we're talking about this being a financial burden that they've put themselves under, well, there's just only so much. Like, people are complaining ad nauseum about Zeke Naji making $8 million. That's not the problem. Like, it's just not. The problem is that you've got $150 million or whatever tied up into 4 guys. And that's just like, if you do not believe that those 4 are going to be the best core 4 in the entire NBA, then you're probably not going to win. And that's like unfortunate because I just don't think that they're going to get the help from the rest of the roster that other teams will, because they have more financial flexibility, more resources, more things that they can throw at it.
Maybe. This is interesting. We should talk more about this week. If you're looking for Nuggets news, I do think we're stuck until they hire a POBO, and it's going to be where sun's getting real low on that kind of idea. We'll see what happens this week with that.
All right. Well, hey, everybody, that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Nuggets. I promise I will be more positive on the next episode. We'll be back on Tuesday night. It's going to happen. We're going to make it happen. It's going to be great. Thank you so much for listening to this particular episode. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. We will talk to you guys very soon.
He's lying.